Good evening, Bill.
Hello, Sandy.
How are you?
I'm good. I like your whole look tonight is very I don't know, it's very nice. You look put
Thank
together
you.
for the show.
I am actually.
I thought so.
Mm. I'm not sure it was the right choice.
It's always the right choice if you made it. So what are we discussing today?
Okay, picture purchase.
Mm.
A
Wait,
conversation with Bill Wadman.
hey, what's the so what does this title mean? Or am I supposed to figure that out as we go along?
Well, maybe figure it out. But no,
Okay.
I will say that it's not about buying, it's not about paying money. It's about getting a handle, I guess, on what the picture is, what it means, what truth kind of is, I suppose.
Okay.
Hmm. So I know that before we started, we flicked through the slides I've prepared,
Yep.
and you said you didn't know any of the work this evening.
True.
How does that make you feel when you know that we're about to talk and you've not seen any of the work before?
Well, to be fair, I think that the majority of stuff that you show me that I have to extemporaneously comment on is stuff that I haven't seen before. Um, but I don't know. Is that the kind of thing that would that make you nervous if you had to do that?
Hmm. Yeah, probably.
Because you feel like you'd say the wrong thing, or do you feel like your analysis might be different than what you would have found if you read up on it?
I think I'm just not that confident in what I know.
Yeah. I'm not that confident. I'm just foolish, I guess.
Well, I don't think so. I think anyone watching will realize that if it's true what you say, that you don't actually know most of the things I show you,
Yeah.
then actually you're rather extraordinary that you're able to approach each of these things with a fresh mind, but also a wealth of, I guess, supporting information or understanding about the wider world that enables you to, in one way, I suppose, pass judgment. It's a really amazing skill.
Well, I try, but I think, I think if you really dug deep enough into art analysis, it's probably 3-page primer on all the different ways you could slice things up. You know what I mean?
No, explain what you mean.
I mean, things are geometric or societal or high key or low key or you have to know chiaroscuro. You need to know the eras that things are. You need to know about you know Christian art and the time periods when those things happened. You want to. There's a general body of knowledge which isn't that large, I think, in order to be able to look at something and go, oh, at least I could place it in context of all these
Hmm.
things along these different dimensions.
See, I think what you've said there is exactly what I hope for with students. Is like sometimes, maybe not for a while now, but students did used to say to me, "Oh, Miss, you know so much," and I used to think, "No, I don't." But maybe similar to you, I do have an overview somehow of like a wide.
Yeah, you have a map in your head that you can put pins into if you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really good description of what it is, and I think for younger learners watching this and thinking about art criticism and looking at art history and how things all slot together, things slot together simply in human history. Um, and as you said, we could be art detectives. I play that a lot with the younger children.
Yeah.
This idea we're art detectives, like where are we? What time are we in?
Yeah.
What assumptions can we make? And I know assumptions for some people are really, they're just falsehoods, but actually they're very useful in allowing someone to feel out with some confidence, actually, how they might approach what they see. So I
I
think it's
agree.
very useful. Anyway, picture purchase.
I think this one is out of focus.
Imogen came in and looked at it and said, "Mum, is that you?"
Uh,
I said,
could have
"No."
been actually.
No, it's not, Imogen. But I think in context of actually what I'm hoping that we will talk about, a sense that we might rush in with things that we can't quite determine, that we have a compulsion or a need to fill in the blanks, so to speak, or the gaps, or indeed to focus up in our minds that which is maybe unfocused.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Mia's brothers, they're an Italian, they are brothers. They're in their 50s now. They grew up or certainly studied in Milan and have lived all over the world. They do a lot of commercial work, but they're painters. So this is a painting.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mm.
It's interesting. I was thinking about if you were going to do this photographically, this isn't out of focus. This is diffused, right? So it's like shooting through a diffused panel with somebody behind it is how you would make this not out of focus. But at the same time, then I think about it from a painting point of view, and you kind of wonder, do you paint it most of the way with a certain amount of detail and then just with a big brush, no, this Bob Ross style diffuse it?
This is meticulous with fine layers of spray, and yeah, the two of them work. I want to know more about their process.
Yeah, that would be fascinating to me.
I mean, I've read small amounts that I can find about their process, and I know that, as I said, they're using lots of spray and kind of like a tiny, finite, pointillistic applications. But I really, I want to know, for example, if they're working together side by side on a canvas, or the kind of more anecdotal stuff about painting together. Does one do this one and the other brother does this one?
Or is one the technician and the other one's like a theoretical guy and doesn't really actually pick up a thing very much,
Yeah.
It's a little bit like whenever you listen about the Coen brothers, when they're making movies, it's like, okay, how do you direct something with two people? And apparently they're very much on the same page, so maybe these guys are too.
Yeah, there's a lot of evidence to support that. The sense that they're kind of it's simpatico. They're totally in tune, and they speak kind of as one when they give interviews. I got something that they wrote about this series of work, which I think is in itself rather beautiful and poetic, actually. It's an exercise for the inner spirit, stretching our understanding of what we see and perceive to stimulate our consciousness and the limits of our idea of the world and its symbols. We're trying to force the viewer to interact with the image, and to do so in a sensitive effort by filtering it through the perception and the process of identification to achieve something not fixed or limited, but which is boundless and personal.
It's interesting to me because when I look at this, it's different than if they had painted it and then put, I don't know, black bars across parts of it, right? So it was just parts of it were obscured or even something like that, because the human brain wants to just pull that into focus and it's not there. It's like it's almost frustrating to look at in that way, because you think, oh, my brain can solve this problem by focusing my eyes, or I need to get closer or whatever. And then you do, and you have no more new information than you had before. It's like stymieing,
Well, does that leave you though with a feeling of frustration?
Yes, me it does, yes. But then again, I go to my eye doctor so I can get 20/15 vision so I can see things sharper than your average bear. So I'm weird.
Why?
Why? That doesn't bother you?
Why does it frustrate you? That's what I want to look at. Why does it frustrate you to not be able to see in clear focus?
When they say when people have a stroke, sometimes they can't come up with certain words, and they get really frustrated because they're just like, I know the word, I just can't communicate with you. It's like that kind of feeling, that kind of frustration. It's that feeling in reverse, where it's like, it's not about me emoting something. It's that there's something there that I can't ingest because it's out of focus and there's just not enough information. So I find it very frustrating. Yeah.
So if you can't ingest it because there's not enough information, is your mind working to fill in the information gap?
As they said, that's what they want. For me, I look at it and say, well, you didn't give me enough. Like anything that I'm filling in is just nonsense that's in my brain. Like, okay, my question is, other than the fact that I know that this is a white woman in this picture with dark hair, you could have just written down white woman, dark hair on a piece of paper, and I would have as much information as I have looking at this right now.
And you don't find that rather amusing or beautiful or poetic in some way?
No, in fact, if anything, I would almost find a blank canvas with that typed in the middle of it kind of a funnier analysis of this. But again, that's me and my own particular stuff. Somebody once looked at some picture I took and she looked at it. She goes, everything you do is so sharp, is so, defined. And I was like, yeah. She's like, how do you do that? And I was like, very carefully,
God, this is very careful, Bill.
I know it is very careful, but it's very carefely incorrect. And I know you're gonna jump on the correct. I know where you're going.
But so again, let's pick that apart. If something is correct, so you at the moment are saying that something that is sharp is correct.
Yes, not always, but this is so not sharp that it's definitely flawed to me. I understand what they're trying to do. It's like I understand that you don't look at that and want to squint to like make it lock in somehow.
No, I just love looking at it.
I look at that and it makes me feel like I need to go to my eye doctor.
No, I find it soft and yielding and beautiful.
Yeah, and feminine.
Is that because you equate soft, yielding, and beautiful with feminine? When
no, I think
say those things.
Only because you've used those kinds of words before while describing femininity.
But again, you're always trying to push us into positions.
Of course.
And categories.
Yeah.
I can do a pretty good job of that myself, I'm sure, but I'm not so out and proud with it as you are, I don't think.
I mean, how do you... So you look at this as soft and... What's the word you used? Yielding? Is that the word?
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost like you could press and it would push back a little bit, but it would give.
No, it's kind of like sensationally for me, it's like entering a cloud.
Do you have synesthesia when you look at art?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, do you always?
Yeah, mostly. That's why I find, I'm sure we've talked about this before. I'm not actually.
We have a little bit.
But I do find color like just about blows my brains out. So I have to be really careful with color. I love color.
Yeah.
I measure it very, very carefully in my surroundings because it's just too stimulating. I find it overwhelming.
Yeah.
So something like this, for me, the color is so beautiful. And it, obviously it's present. It's a present color. It's not something that is so muted, and yet it does have a softness.
Sure.
Not just because of the diffusion. But as terms of like a sensation, I get lots of sensations from looking. Do you not?
Not that way, no. Do you, let me ask you a question. Do you have is it always, if you are looking at an object, a piece of art, sculpture, that kind of thing? Or is it if you're looking at a sunset, or you're looking at me on the screen, like does that give you synesthesia too? Like, do you have that sensation, or is it only when it's like like an artistic piece that you're looking at?
No, it's not when it's not when it's an art piece per se. I would have it, for example, in interior spaces. Um, constructed space, anything where there's like a painted wall or some furniture or something, or obviously a piece of artwork. But no, I suppose I would have it if I was walking. I mean, I have my route where I walk a lot here near the river. That's very soft for me. That's good for me.
You know, it's interesting. I look at this and it makes me want to, you know, take a hammer to the thing that's in front of the painting.
Oh my goodness, Bill, what violence.
like remove whatever's there so I can see what's behind it. You know, when you go on the internet sometimes and it's like, this image might be offensive to some viewers, like click to actually see it. That's what this feels like. Like, we're going to blur it out because it might be too sexy for you.
Well, just to mention, people who want to look at the Mayors brothers, they've got, they're represented by Maddox Gallery in London. They've got a big presence on things like Pinterest. I mean, Pinterest quite a few years ago now is where I discovered them, because I was looking for the photography course for work to do with blur.
Yeah.
Guess who else came up?
I don't know, somebody.
But what kind of startled me about this work is that it is a painting. So there's something so postmodern about that, isn't there? It's like not just
yeah, that definitely, it feels like it's not, that feels photographic to me, or manipulated somehow in post. I know I know you're saying that it's not, but it, you know, just interesting.
Yeah, but do you remember quite a while ago now we talked about paintings that are made to look like photographs, that look like paintings?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of the Mayors brothers' work actually is a painting of another painting, just with this diffusion. But it seems, as you're suggesting, as if it's via a photograph.
I think I need to do some more research into these people and their process. I do, but it's like, I look at that and I just, it does. Yeah. You find it soft, and I find it frustrating. It's almost like it's taunting me.
I've got some questions that I would like to ask you.
Okay. Okay. Should I prepare for this? Should I call my lawyer?
Are we pleased to see the familiar?
Yes, of course.
And so does recognition equate to pleasure?
I mean, not always, but I think that pattern recognition is a big part of how we do things. So we like to see things we saw before because it's safer than seeing things we haven't seen before.
But that element of safety, that kind of lizard brain churning away at the back.
Sure. That's not why I don't like this. Well, actually, you know what? It could be why I don't like this, in the sense that that woman with the dress off her shoulder could be dangerous. I just can't see her sharp enough to know. Maybe she's holding a knife.
Maybe. But in terms of picture purchase, though, we are looking at an image in which we don't have full purchase on the image, as we might expect an image to read, but that doesn't mean the image isn't relevant. I would say that we have strange notions about what images should be, don't we?
You know what I also noticed? Go ahead.
Why do I think that an image must look like what would be the undiffused version of this?
Well, I think that that's just natural, because in the real world, we don't see things out of focus.
Actually, I have terrible eyesight.
Okay, you see things out of focus, but
and I
ideally
see,
you wouldn't.
yeah, a lot of things I can't see.
Wait, you wear contacts?
Not now. I have glasses.
Wait, how far away can you see?
Um, I can't read the thing that's on the countertop over there on the bottle.
Which is 10 feet away. Yeah.
Less than that.
So your eyesight is 3 to 4 feet away and closer.
Mm.
You're like, my wife is even worse. She's a foot away. She doesn't know it's me. So maybe you're just more used to not being able to see. And for me, I've always had good vision up until the last few years.
I was going to say, I've seen you wearing your glasses before, Bill.
Yeah, I have 3 different sets of glasses now, and I never had any 3 years ago. Very upsetting to me. Now that's sharp, although overexposed.
Yeah, it's actually just a record of a piece of immersive installation that Olafur Eliasson did at the Palace of Versailles.
Can you actually just go back for 1 second? There's something I just wanted to say. Did you notice in the lower right-hand corner that there's like this smudge that they made, like they sprayed it and let it drip a little bit? I didn't notice that until right at the end, which kind of it breaks the fourth wall a little bit. You know what I mean? It breaks the illusion a little bit. Go ahead.
Do you not love that?
The actual art or the photograph of the art?
What you just said about young
Breaking the
women
illusion?
13, yeah. The playing with the sense of illusion.
I think I would like that image better in real life than I do small on a computer screen.
Yeah, they are about a meter, these paintings.
Yeah, I might like that better.
Mm.
I don't think it translates as well.
This is at the Palace of Versailles.
In the Hall of Mirrors or somewhere else?
Well, Ellison took over the palace, did loads of installations all over, pieces of sculpture. But this is deep mirror yellow, and there's also deep mirror black. And there were lots of illusions created around the palace where visitors would be obviously there to see the palace, but also confronted. And I use that word confronted, I think, best talking about this, because they would be maybe expecting to see themselves in a mirror space and wouldn't, or perhaps might find themselves reflected somehow somewhere that they shouldn't. And a very clever interplay on illusion and I guess expectation of what one might find. Anyone who's been to Versailles will know it's lavish, opulent, grotesque even. And it's
do you like Versailles?
I found it very stressful. Versailles. It has this residue of, I've talked about this before, I think.
Yeah, we talked about the gardens, I think, last time.
Yeah, it has a residue of anxiety all through it, I find. Everything about it. There were a few peaceful corners that I photographed. Obviously, I like photographing those empty spaces, but for the main part, I found it frantic. Something, legacy of frantic nature, of control, thwarting. Something rather disgusting or disturbing about it. It's very odd feeling.
Do you feel that way at all, sort of stately homes in England and stuff too?
Sometimes. I'm trying to think of another good example. But Versailles is the place where I felt it most keenly, I think.
Hampton Court can feel a little bit like that for me. But yeah, I'm with you. It's, you know, if the black deep mirror was basically just like, you know, Kapoor's black paint stuck on the mirror or something, like, so it was just nothingness.
What it did was I don't know how this happened with the reflection.
Yeah.
But it offset what would have been reflected, that was then somehow the reflection ended up somewhere else.
Oh, okay.
But they're quite close together. I wish I'd picked a photograph where you could see that. But this idea again, picture purchase, like we're maybe expecting to see something that isn't. And especially when we're maybe expecting to encounter our own image, I find that fascinating that we might approach a mirror and not see our familiar face. I mean, that's kind of horror movie stuff, isn't it? In one way.
Yeah.
A great existential challenge.
It's interesting because I could look at this and think that it's really neat. And if I was there, think that it was quite neat. I could also be there in front of it and think, all right, so they stuck a big light behind a mirror on the mirror there. And they want you to think that it's really deep and meaningful when really it's just a light on a mirror.
Yeah, I mean, Eliasson has that strange quality of I'm never quite sure if he is a master of meaning
or a master manipulator,
or if he's just a trickster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's just playing with optical illusions all the time. I think what's right to mention about this body of work at Versailles in 2016 is that, as I said, he did take over really pretty much the whole palace. And, you know, these kinds of illusions would have been everywhere. You know, you would look out a window and instead of seeing a vista, you would actually see yourself in the window.
Yeah.
There were lots of things that played with perception and, again, expectation. And all of it makes me wonder, like, what does it actually mean to perceive? Like, what does
if you
that...
fall down that rabbit hole, you never come out.
But that's where I think we need to go, Bill. Like, what does it actually mean to perceive? And indeed, who is the perceiver?
And does it matter if the thing you're perceiving is real or not?
You know,
I think
we live in a world of illusion. We tell ourselves lies. Our lives are full of lies. We're telling ourselves lies all the time. We're being told lies. We're telling lies. You know, there's lots of ways we could skirt around this and use language to try and describe it, but life is full of illusion.
Yes. But I don't think that negates reality.
But what...
I don't know. It's like I come down on I'm like a big sort of Descartes kind of guy, you know, where it's like, okay, well, you know, reality exists. Here we are. We're looking at it. Yes, it can be manipulated, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in the first place. You know.
Right, but what does it mean to actually perceive?
It means whatever our brain tells us it means. Do you trust your brain? Do you trust your senses?
I experience my senses.
Okay, so what do you trust? She's like, not all that much.
No. Trust and truth are really tricky things.
Yeah, especially in the modern world. But I think that sometimes we disassemble so much to show how little actually exists that we trick ourselves into believing that nothing exists. Does that make sense? Like, yes, a lot of things are illusions, a lot of things are lies, but that doesn't mean everything is an illusion and everything is a lie. So it's like this like logical fallacy that I think a lot of people in the modern world get stuck in.
Hang on, did you say a logical fallacy?
Yeah. I mean, it's also interesting because, you know, I think we've all been in certain places at certain times in our lives. And then going back there at other times in their lives, you know, the way you understood your childhood home when you were there as a kid, and then you go back when you're 40 years old and you look at your childhood home and it feels totally different to you, you know?
Mm.
So much of the interpretation that you have has to do with the mental weather that input is being thrown into. You're
But
sad or happy or confused or sick, you see things and experience things very differently.
but do we know truth when we see it?
Persig would say yes. I don't know.
But what does Bill Woodman say?
I want to say yes, because if the answer is anything else, then you really can't trust anything. And then what's the point?
I think we're caught in this strange reliance on
Truth?
yeah, believing.
Yeah, but that's all your, I mean, that's your own preconceptions of the malleability and woo of the world, you know?
I love how you always attempt to discredit me.
No, I'm not just, I mean, I'm not discrediting you. I'm just saying that I think that if my perception or if my description, my overlay on the world is arguably flawed and singular and a mirage
Mm.
of control and structure
Mm.
and truth,
Mm-hmm.
then you could argue that saying the way you look at it is also equally as much a mirage.
Yes.
You know,
And I ask myself, have I actually ever known truth?
and the answer is no.
No, I ask and I look at it. I wonder about
Unless
it.
you're on speaking of seeing, and then it's all truth all the time. But wait,
No, Bill, to me, it seems like you're really trying to push this way. I don't know if the question is either too simple for you or
yeah,
like too difficult to go into, or if you just think it's a really stupid question.
no, I think that it's sort of a fundamental thing. It's like we're reading a book and we're analyzing the book and discussing the book, and then in the middle of it you say, how do you know you're even alive and reading the book right now? How do you know the book exists? And it's like, whoa, okay, you just went like 7 levels up to the point where all the other stuff we're saying doesn't really matter if the conversation's down at that level.
I want the conversation to be at that level, Bill.
Well, then we're going to have to, both get PhDs in philosophy, because that's like where you go. So one of the things that drives me crazy about philosophy is that there is no answer, and the next person just goes and writes a book that discredits everything everyone else said before.
Well, without discrediting anything and without having a PhD in philosophy, I think the two of us could still manage, as indeed could anybody, to really inquire into these things.
All right, so give me the question one more time. Let me start from scratch.
Okay, what does it mean to perceive?
I think that means that you have sensory experiences which are interpreted through the lens of your worldview. And I think in some ways that encapsulates the way you see the world, the way I see the world. I don't know. Do you have a good definition?
Of course not.
She's like, I got the question. I don't need the answer. She's like, I don't know what the answer is. I've been thinking about it for 43 years.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
steady
just going to
on
lay it
there.
on you.
Steady on. Don't age me prematurely.
Wait, what are you now? 41, 42?
42.
You're the answer to life, the universe, and
supercomputer.
everything.
Yeah, the supercomputer.
I remember when I was 42. That
Hitchhiker's
was
Guide
very
to the
exciting.
Galaxy, everybody.
Yeah. I remember when I was 42. I was very excited by that. I was also very excited when I was 37, because there's the scene in holy grail where he's like, old man. He's just like, I'm 37. He's like, what? 37. I'm not old. I just like that. Well, I couldn't call you man, could I? Anyway.
It appears to be interesting that we can't stay with the seriousness and depth of inquiry to sustain this question for very long.
Do you think that that question has an answer?
I think it has infinite answers.
Yes. Okay.
But I think it's okay to look at some of them, and it's okay to look at the ones that come up for us now when we ask the question. I also think it's really relevant for me to ask myself, have I ever known truth? Because then I'm asking, do I see the illusion?
Wait, now your answer to that question is that you've never seen truth, or you don't know still?
I'm looking at it.
Okay, so if that is the question you're trying to ask, what is the test? How do you know whether it's something you've ever seen truth or not?
Well,
other than just your own determination of that.
All these questions come with other questions connected, don't they? Because then we say, well, who decides what truth is? And, we really could go into this forever, couldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's where I think, much as we have 50 minutes or whatever we talk for, I still think, we're not going to get to the bottom of the universe in that time, but we can give it a shot.
Yeah, I think my problem with any sort of question like that is that ultimately at the end, you're right back where you started.
That's okay, isn't it? And it's okay also because we're looking at artwork that in some way connects to these bigger questions or indeed prompts them. Like for me, I'm prompted. I'm prompted to question.
Hold on. I think that you're right that certain artwork, including stuff like Deep Mirror Yellow at Versailles, do prompt those sorts of questions. But it also, in the sense that there is no answer to these questions, the answer could be limitless, or the answer could be a foot below the waterline and we just can't tell. So sometimes pieces of work like this may seem deeper than they are just because the answer is beyond a thing that we can answer. So it's like, ooh, we could go on forever on this question. Well, the answer might be very, very simple. And the answer is, yeah, okay, you perceive stuff because you're looking at it and that's what your brain does.
Yeah. And
but you could also go on for hours, obviously, like we said, right?
Yeah. So I think that being able to answer these things in a very qualified way that links into our brain chemistry and the kind of facts of our...
Yeah, we're looking at it from a neurological point of view or a philosophical point of view. So, two different things.
I think you tend to look at things from a physical, practical.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am doing the thing you do now, which is I'm saying what you are and putting you in a box.
Yep.
I don't like it, by the way.
It makes you very uncomfortable.
It does. But I think to look at this and question it philosophically, frankly, I'm grateful to Eliasson for providing this prompt, and whether he himself intended it to be as deep as I might make it is not relevant.
Yeah.
The thing that's important is that in looking or experiencing, I'm faced with a much wider question that I ask myself. I am not being given answers. I am not being expected to know answers.
Sure.
But what I am doing is I'm questioning.
Right. But I could also, as an artist, stick you inside of a black box with absolutely no lights in it. So you have zero input. And I could say, this is art, and think about your reality. And really, like, is that actually art, or is that just me kind of playing with the idea that there's a deep nothingness inside of all of us? And if we, shut out the lights, that's all that's left.
I mean, art is playing with ideas, Bill.
No, absolutely. But I'm saying is that it's sort of like, if I give you literally a blank canvas, is that art? Yeah. Did I actually do anything, or did I do nothing and that means something? Like that's the tipping point at which I kind of wonder what's happening. I also wonder if, you go and look at this, whether that feeling you get of unlimited questions, as we're saying.
Yeah.
In some ways, by even us asking 4 or 5 questions about it to each other, it's now limitless questions -5. And therefore, it's actually taking some of the mystery away of something that only is interesting because of the mystery.
Okay.
It's
well,
like, it's hold on. It's like you go swimming in the ocean, and is it limitlessly deep below you? Or could I sink a thing and know that it's 1,050 feet? And therefore, it actually is more interesting mentally to think that I have no idea what's below me versus knowing that it's 1,000 feet of water below me.
well, in which case, I would wonder why you keep coming back week on week to talk to me about anything, if that's the case.
By the way, that would be like 300 meters for you Europeans and everyone else around the world. Yes. Why do I come back? Because
No.
I find it interesting. But I
Right,
do find,
okay.
yeah.
So the fact is that, again, I'm going to use this word inquire. We are inquiring together. We are wondering together. Aren't
Yes.
we?
Of course we are. But I think that there is a level of question where I don't know that I or we or anybody really adds anything to the question.
No, but maybe, we explore where that question takes us, what it brings up for us. I might ask myself about all kinds of things with this work to do with, again, expectation of image, identity, vanity, even in the historical context of the palace, what kind of comment historically is being made.
Do you like mirrors in general?
I mean, I do look in the mirror. I
Yeah.
brush my teeth in the mirror. I put my makeup on looking in the mirror.
Do you wear makeup?
I also know that I'm sure somebody who's a kind of psychologist will say something about me because of this, that when I'm really, really down, really, really low, sometimes I go and stand and look in the mirror and smile at myself. And
okay.
I mean, I think the smiling anyway can make you feel better, but seeing myself smiling also makes me feel better.
Oh, interesting. It's like making yourself laugh because things happen in your brain, even if you don't really mean it. Just the act of laughing.
Yeah, but it seems to be like a double hit to be able to see it as well.
Interesting, because I don't really look in mirrors all that often. I don't really think about them that much. But then again, I don't know. I'm not terribly concerned with, I don't think about myself that way all that often.
What do you mean that way?
My physicality.
Well, I don't know if I buy that, Bill. Sorry.
Why is that?
Because you train on a rower like a crazy person every day.
I do, but that has nothing to do with me. It has less to do with me looking good and more to do with me trying to stave off depression and death.
But it's all part of the same corporeal reality, isn't it?
Yeah, but I mean that I'm not as, or I don't think that I am. And I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying that I'm probably less than most people all that concerned with how people judge me visually. I don't know. I don't, maybe I should think about it more. I don't know. Maybe that's my whole problem. But yeah. Sorry, I just got lost in it for a second.
Rein it in there, Woodman.
Trying.
Okay.
Ouch.
And it's a painting.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes more sense because that would really suck to do physically. Although I'd be willing to bet a lot of money that that was made from a photograph.
Picture purchase. Does truth matter?
Is that in reference to the fact that it's a painting?
And
Would it
and
be
that in
different if it
itself
was? Yeah,
has its own edge, doesn't it? Because that's making an assumption then about truthfulness in photographs versus painting.
sure.
I mean,
I
I
mean,
actually,
go ahead.
no, well, this is a very, to me, this is a very truthful painting.
Why?
Because I understand it entirely, and it's interesting for me to see this and look at the Myers Brothers painting and have somehow almost like a similar reaction, that something is giving to me in this.
Wait, something's giving to you in this picture?
Yeah, something's allowing me entrance. It's giving something to me. It's has a softness.
Where did you find this one?
I was looking at photorealism for year 9, and this came up the other week. I've shown it to quite a few classes, and they're all amazed at it, because we're looking at it like photographs, and actually people are even saying the photograph's really good. And
Yeah.
then no, it's an oil painting. And if you look him up, I mean, he's on Instagram, and you can find some information online. I think he must have been doing this a long time. I think he trained the University of the Basque Country, obviously Spanish. The rendering of this is so skillful. I mean, the process to paint like this is painstaking.
Although I find that the people that I know who can do this kind of stuff innately have a skill to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like they see this way. It's not learned. I mean, the painting skills may be learned, but the visualization skills are very much innate. Yeah.
I mean, if I'm asking about, do I live in illusion? Is illusion what I see all the time?
Yeah.
And then when I see work like this, and I think, well, this is an ultimate illusion, but actually, is there just a truth in this? Again, it's this idea, almost splitting hairs about the language now, but is there any lie in this? Yes, it's a deception, actually, to trick us. But then when you think about it,
because it's a painting.
Yeah, but then of course it doesn't have to be, because that's based entirely on the positional way I've approached what I think painting should be.
Yes, and what photography is. It could be that. I mean, I also think that if you saw this in real life, do we have any idea what size it is?
No, I don't.
I think if you saw this in real life, you would see that it was a painting. You ever see like go up real close to like a Chuck Close photorealistic painting?
Yeah.
It's like from 10 feet away, it is perfect. And then you get up close and you go, oh, it's not perfect.
No, I know that. I know that with the close stuff. I think this though is even more.
Yeah. If this was a photograph, would you like the photograph, or would it seem cheesy to you? That was a loaded question. Part of me thinks that this feels cheesy to me. It's like it's too correct. It's too obvious. It's too simple. Again,
if you look at some of the other work, it's interesting to see something that is so immediately recognizable. He paints a lot of female nudes as well, but there's always something that's a bit off. And I'm sure it's deliberate, but it does call into question again this idea about like relationship to truth. Like, what is the expectation of what this thing looks like? in this case, a hand or a candle. In the case of some of his other work, it will be the female body. And some of it can be quite, what's the word? Like it makes you feel really uncomfortable, because there'll be something that's just slightly out of kilter, a lump or a hump or a bump that is slightly off.
You don't think it was there in the original, you mean?
Mm.
In whatever he was painting?
Yeah. Anyway, would you rather look at something that is entirely able to be understood, or would you like to look at something that gives you room to understand on your own?
I think the better question would be, would I rather see something that's totally understood or something that cannot be understood? See, if it has room for interpretation, that's very different than having nothing but interpretation. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To some extent, because okay, well, sure, everyone loves a little room for interpretation. I don't need necessarily engineering schematics, and even those are not the thing that they're building. Those are a drawing of things that you're building. I tend to like some things with structure, yeah.
Right.
Because I feel like part of my job as an artist, and job of everyone as an artist, is to communicate some thought or process from their mind into the mind of the viewer. Art is communication to me. So when I look at things that are overly ambiguous, to me, sometimes I think that it fails because it's like, well, you didn't do your job. Anybody can make things be ambiguous. I can write a book that's nothing but nonsense words, and that could make you think, but it's not actually communicating anything.
Are we not communicating to ourselves though, Bill?
But then why do you need the artist to do that?
Why do you need the artist full stop anyway? What I mean is that you have an external communication, as you're suggesting, that's about something you can really see and you can get on board with because somebody's giving you the information in a really parceled, neat way. Or you can have information that...
Way to simplify my point of view there, Sandy, but go ahead, yes.
No, but I mean, you can then have something...
No, I got it, go ahead, yeah.
Something that doesn't give you information, but that prompts some kind of questioning that in itself might create an insight or develop a wisdom. I wonder about wisdom in these things. You know, we live in this culture of like information, like we have information, we acquire information. Information is acquisitional.
Yeah.
We teach knowledge, but we don't teach wisdom.
But does wisdom come from inspiration or does wisdom come from other people?
This is what I'm saying, is that I question myself. I'm questioning myself all the time. When I'm looking at this work, I question myself. I question the Myers brothers, yes. I question the thing I see, yes. But then what I see creates this avalanche of inquiry within me about things that you might think are disconnected from this particular painting.
Yeah.
But that have arisen in me because of this painting.
Sure.
And in that way also.
But then what do you call that thing? Do you call that art then that's doing that? Because, you know, looking at a flower on your way to work could do the same thing. Looking at the concrete on the wall could be the same thing. Are those things art then?
No.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean they don't prompt the inquiry. No,
I'm saying it can prompt the inquiry, but like, what then is the purpose of that art and that artist? The effort they put into that is just to prompt inquiry in you. But if they're not even controlling what exactly the inquiry is, they're just generally prompting inquiry. Mm-hmm. Even then, that doesn't, it's like, it's too vague to me. It feels like a cop-out. It feels like somebody, they're basically saying, yeah, this book that I wrote, it actually means everything. And it's like, well, it can't mean everything because it's not infinitely long and I'm not going to, whatever. It's just, it needs, I know it's all very Western and Cartesian, isn't it? Yeah.
Do you not think that the universe is in each of us?
Yeah, I don't go that far. I am but a speck of dust in a large, giant moat.
What?
Falling through the universe, and
yes.
I'm going to go away eventually.
Yes, of course. But that within each of us is the universe. So you've got the external universe. It's not separate to everything that's in me.
Yeah. I think that maybe below our conscious mind is actually rather shallow, and we think it looks deep, just like the ocean I was talking about before.
I think I feel sad now.
By the way I look at the world?
Maybe by feeling that the way I look at the world is so silly and shallow.
No, I just think that I came to these conclusions because I'd rather live, experience, enjoy, find joy in what I believe is and have evidence for, rather than wait around to find a better dreamlike way of looking at it that I can never prove. It's like it's like I can always wait for the thing that's better than what I have now, but why don't I just enjoy the thing that I have now?
I don't see how these things are kind of different, although I do think, again, I seize on these words you use, but you use the word prove. What have you got to prove?
Well, I'm just saying, I can believe I'm the fastest human on earth, but if I go outside and run, I'm actually quite slow. It's like what's in my mind does not relate to what's in reality. Reality is what is in front of your senses. If you're talking about, how we experience things, I need primary sources because I can think anything. That doesn't help me.
Mm-hmm.
See, now you're sad just because you're like, my friend Bill just thinks so shallowly.
No, it's so interesting talking to you because it's a way of thinking and being that we're all so similar, yet sometimes come up upon things and realize that in the short term and the small hand way of life, do think I see it differently to you.
Sure. And I mean, some of that comes down to experiences we've had in life. And, I may crave reality because I felt like things were illusions when I was younger or something, who knows?
Always interesting talking to you, Bill.
Glad I could be of service, Sandy.
See you next week.
Bye.